Senor.
Continue in some thoughts on Genesis chapter 1. We've been looking, I think, a couple weeks on this, and we're just going to really explain everything in it, and I can't anyway. But I want to pick up this morning verse 4 and verse 5. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. And mainly draw emphasis were the first day. I'm also going to pick up verses 1 through 3. Though I have changed some things. Pick these scriptures, but chapter 2, verse 1 through 3. Thus the heavens and the earth and all the hosts of them were finished, and on the seventh day God had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day, because in it he rested from all the work which he had created and made. Now, I will say, that is that God did not rest on the seventh day because he was tired. Okay? God doesn't get tired, but rather because he was done. God was done with his creation, and so this was that day. He made that day holy, and I'm going to get more into that. But not this morning, actually. So this morning I'm going to look at, I'm pretty sure I said it on. Okay. Try, how's it now? You hear? All right. So I just decided to stop with this point this morning because I have not much to say on this. And just really want to look at in the scripture that he has, that he created this world, everything in it, he created 6 days, and then on the 7th day he rested. I just want to spend a few minutes before I actually move on. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is that, and you know this, but let me state it anyway, is that I'm not a creation scientist or any kind of scientist. And therefore, I'm going to do my very best in things that I'm going to say, but I'm bringing this to you from the viewpoint of just a little country preacher who preaches the word and likes to do things, and a lot of information that I've gathered from people who are experts in the field. I've gathered information from scientists. I've gathered information from people. Various different things, and if you have any questions upon some of these things, you're going to have to listen very closely. So if you have any questions on some of these things, basically I can lead you with the point. I understand any further than that. The best thing you can do is take that point and then research that for yourself, and get a better line of communication more than what I'm going to share with you, because it covers a lot of territory, scientific and historical territory there. However, I do understand, I think, what I'm trying to say to you, okay? So that's my disclaimer. What I want to tell you is that God created everything in 6 days, 6 literal days. Now, because the scientific interpretations on the longevity of this planet date back millions, billions of years ago. But I want you to tell you, and then we were taught that right in our public school system, have been for a long time. And all of us were brought up believing if you didn't have any other source, believing that the world's been here for billions, millions of years. But that is not what the Bible teaches. And I just want to be clear on that point. I want to clarify that and people, okay, in the record that the Bible gives, or they try to believe the scientific mainstream flow of scientists. They either believe them, that the world been here for all these years, and who tried to merge the two together. Okay, and they try in their ideas to try to prove that the Bible is true together, and they have theories like the gap theory and other theories that try to say that the Earth could have been here for millions and millions of years, and because between verse 1, verse 2 in Genesis chapter 1. And that's really an effort to try to say, well, I believe in science, and that is accurate and true, and I believe in the Bible, and it is accurate and true, and I believe in that's got a lot of holes in that kind of philosophy, if you really stop and think about it. Because the Bible does specify this here. The word that it uses here in Hebrew is Yom Echad. Yom Echad. And means day. Yom means day, and then Echad means one or first. And so it uses these words in the ancient, those two words saying day one. And that's the thing. See, the Genesis record here, I want to talk about day one, the first day, or the second day. You know, Hebrew word Echad just literally meaning one. It was one day, the first day, and then it's the second day. And over again, the evening and the morning. The evening and the morning. Now, by any stretch of the calendar, one morning equals 24 hours. Look, it's been 24 hours, one day, one morning, one time. It was the same way in my parents' lifetime, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. In fact, as long as we have one day has been a period of 24 hours. A year, we're talking about the rotation of the earth, right? We're talking about the revolving of the earth around the sun. And these, as long as we have history, it's always been the same. It is just totally incorrect to try to read into this about millions of years. Well, it's pretty specific. God created these things. He created a certain amount of things, and then he said, this is good, and this is one evening and one morning that I spent to do it. Then he goes on and talks about the other things he created. And then he's right back to the idea of this was one evening and one. So we have the chronology of the dating of things. It's really hard to try to read millions of years into this account. Second, we have the genealogy of the order of the dating of all of this. We have the genealogies recorded in the Bible. Okay? In which God conveys the idea through these holy scriptures in 6,000 to 7,000 years from the time He created. Well, that just staggers your imagination. The world has been here for billions of years, and life's been here for millions of years. But I just want to share with you this morning that man's just not. Man just doesn't have proof for everything he says either. And I want you to, if you have any doubts about what I'm saying, I want you to go research some of this stuff yourself. How you feel about it. I'm not trying to tell you have to feel one way or another, but I'm sure what the Bible teaches. So genealogies, in fact, if you go to chapter 5 in the book of Genesis, okay, and you look at verse, you're going to find out that the Bible says that exactly how long Adam lived. So all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. The Bible records that the first man living on earth was 930 years old, and he died. Adam was born on the 6th day of creation. Now, if you continue, and then what it does is it goes down to his son, and then down to one of their sons, and the genealogy continues through a specific lineage. And in each one of these cases, it tells how old he was. Now, I just simply, in just a few minutes, I simply calculated from the time of creation, the first were on the earth, and I literally came up with 1,662 years. Flood, it was 1,662 years. And then you can continue. In fact, there's people, Usher was very famous, a bishop lived many years ago. He was very famous in establishing when they took place. In fact, I remember as a kid, I had a Bible that literally had the date in it before the chapters. Anybody got one? Anymore, I don't think. But it actually had, and the years that it was listed, inside the margin area, it wasn't part of the holy inspired. Listed in that translation, and he had the years, and it was took from a man named Usher, which dated it back to about 6,000, 7,000 when it was all created. People, it's no longer there because there's so many people, that feel like that they have to be in agreement with the science and science books, and they want to reconcile their. And really, science is just a pure religion to a lot of the scientists. They have to do it. They have to be convinced and be in agreement with what all the other scientists have said. But according to the biblical genealogy, that the Bible teaches in a recent creation and a young creation. There's also other books by Genesis, even in the book of Exodus. There's other sources that's not even biblical that were in other religions that confirm floods being on the earth and various other things that the Bible teaches. And they're not even part of the Christian faith, other religious on stones and various other things dating back to their ideas about it, but confirming the fact that the Bible was true and recorded flood. So there's a lot of different books, even outside about creation of things. Now, I want to get a little bit deeper in in this subject this morning, pay close attention because I can't really explain it, but so simple this morning. But, about the complexity of biological systems is also evidence to me of a recent creation, and that is explained as the irreducible complexity. Now, irreducible complexity is the idea that some biological structures have evolved piece by piece. In other words, they need all the pieces in order for them to exist. For instance, I think this is a good comparison, at least it is for me. For instance, humans, our organs. We need all of our organs. I know people argue about the opinion. Right? I mean, in order for a human to exist, we got to have a heart, correct? We got to have lungs, okay? We have to have skin. I mean, we have a lot of different organs. Some of us is questionable, but we need a brain as well to be alive. This complexity of biological structures is that since we need all of these things to live and to exist, then we could not evolve with no heart. You got me? And so that's the idea of that to evolving from these earlier life forms, like, you know, and then actually coming into existence, and you wouldn't have even been. Another thing is, there's a problem with the fossil being, that's not what I could read some. It's the problem where species said to be millions of years old, but the same things are still living today. And it's a bit humorous. The scientists have about the longevity of the earth and the evolution, you know, of living things. Basically, the oldest fossil, research this for yourself, the oldest fossil that has been found is referred to as the Cambrian. Now, interesting enough that when you look at this Cambrian, that it looks identical to a horseshoe crab. Play the picture of a horseshoe crab, and everybody's seen one of these at the beach, horseshoe crab. That a horseshoe crab looks just like it fit right into when it's that according to scientists say that this fossil is millions of years old. I think some 400 and something million years old is what they're speculating. Scientists have come up with, if you will study into it rather than just accept everything everybody says, then if you research into that, they have no evidence at all of how life came to be. And they have their speculation, they have their theories on, but they can't do it themselves. And I understand they have tried to put cells into water and electrical shock to see if they could actually bring these cells into life like some of the theories hold. And they haven't been able to produce any kind of life out of that. Anything. They just don't have no evidence as to theories, and there's loopholes in there, all these ideas that they have that go against what the Bible teaches. Okay? And what appears to be a horseshoe crab fossil fossil in some of the oldest strata of the earth, according to starfish fossils, and we still have starfish today. You say, well, what do you say if in that strata, that layer of soil that they're declaring was millions of years, then how come we still have a living thing today that's identical to what they say was there? It's not changed, I'm saying, from what, where's the evolution? How can you say that man has, from a single cell creature, right, that man has evolved and that the earth has evolved and that everything in it is evolving, then why come a horseshoe crab's not evolved or starfish evolved through all these years? They actually can't explain that. They have a word for it, and the word simply means these are exceptions to the rule. And we said that's very convenient. They didn't actually evolve, but we evolved, but they've never evolved. One thing evolved, something else doesn't evolve. I mean, really. Another thing is, it may be very familiar with this, having gone through science. They have these links, these links in evolution chain of man. As Homo sapiens, right? But the link that was before the Homo sapiens was referred to by them as Homo erectus. You'll see that the Homo erectus, being that link, was and the Homo sapiens. The Homo erectus, and by the way, they found the latest find that they have for nearly complete skeleton is referred to as the Turkana. Before that, they only had pieces and fragments of this so-called species, but they found a pretty good skeleton, nearly complete. But what they did have to piece them back. Actually had the people who done this actually used plaster, and they plastered his face back together and exaggerated some of the features of the face, extending out the face to be more like a spout, more like an ape as well. And I didn't look so much into that, the credibility of that. However, this so-called they refer to as this Homo erectus that has a protruding brow, protruding face, really looks like an ape, would really be convincing to people that man evolved. If you will question this and question the scientists on this question to them, that could it be possible that this one that you refer to as Homo erectus was just simply an earlier form of a Homo sapien? And I'm yes, that's possible. So in other words, what they're calling would be referring to as the ape man, in fact, could have just been not a separate species of man. They see there's just all kinds of holes in their theories. These scientists who believe in this evolution theory of everything, they have a problem with this too. Rectify this problem, and that is the soft tissue that's been found in a lot of these bones. The soft tissue. Yeah, that's a problem. In fact, they had found that God stand on the ground that dinosaurs never existed. actually, to the opposite, poses a couple things, and one of them was referred to as the Leviathan, which we would say is more like the sea monsters that were reported of years ago. The Leviathan. If you go into the Bible and you research that Leviathan, I mean, it sounds like a fire-breathing dragon. I mean, it really does. Okay, it really sounds like a fire-breathing dragon that would be referred to by us. The Leviathan. Read up on it. It's fascinating. The other one was the behemoth. The Bible speaks about a behemoth. And I'm going to say that the behemoth would be the land dinosaur. And when were they created? When the land animals were created on that day, the creatures, the fish and stuff were created. That's when the Leviathan was created. Now this was long before the flood. When this flood came, which was universal, then a lot of this stuff, it was over. But not only because of the water, but because of the changes in atmosphere and all of this stuff. That's when longevity of life really sank down to a level that were above the canopy, the same, and under the canopy. All this stuff had been changed when the flood. The Bible said the fountains of the deep were opened up. And after that, and we find a great deal of disease and things like that, and longevity of life shortened up. Went extinct in those days. So we're not saying on a biblical basis that we don't believe in dinosaurs. And that's why these bones are out there. In fact, they found these bones of a T-Rex. But also in one of the bones of the T-Rex, they found soft tissue. In fact, of all the species of samples where there is soft tissue, you know, what does that mean? Well, inside the soft tissue of veins, and it also found that evidence of protein inside these bones. Now, the thing is, and what that we know, and you know, that after a person or die, there's only a certain amount of time before total decay steps in, okay? I mean, it's just a natural process. A man's been able to prolong it, but he doesn't stop it. The bodies can last longer, right? Say like a sudden burn, or depletion of oxygen, or various different longevity to a body and the corruption it would go through. But not millions of years. I mean, there is no evidence whatsoever that soft tissue can exist on anything under any condition for millions of years. In fact, if you do your research on it, you'll find it is absurd. It's absurd. There's no evidence of anything millions of years that had soft tissue, blood vessels, proteins, and bones. The soft tissue in dinosaur bones and other bones is simply screaming out that they didn't exist millions of years ago. They actually existed thousands of years ago. Not as old as what they want to proclaim. They got a serious problem with it because they're not going to admit it. If you argue with one, they'll never agree with you on that. Not a reason, you know. Because they just don't want to believe that there's a God and that the Bible is true. They have to face up to the fact that if the world was created by God, then there must mean a God is real, and they just don't want to admit that. And in much a way they had their own opinions more than fact as well. And that's and I don't want to get much into this because you don't know a great deal. It's interesting to look at it, and that's the decaying of our earth, period. The decaying of everything. In other words, we have the North Pole, the South Pole, which, by the way, has at times, that's pretty interesting. It's factual, scientific, that we've actually have role reversals at times, and they will also smart. They will tell you that every time we have a pole reversal of the earth, that at the same time it also decays the strength of the electromagnetic field on the earth. Now, it's fascinating to find out literally should there be a severe decay in the electromagnetic field. I mean, it affects everything. In fact, I was interested to know when I watched the video, and it wasn't even from a perspective of a Christian perspective. It was literally somebody who believed. They kept talking about what would happen if we had a really severe collapse in electromagnetic field. And it was interesting for me to note that most of the things the book of Revelation talks about, even down to the bowls and diseases upon people, can be caused in the magnetic field. And so that was fascinating to find out. Not only though will they admit that the magnetic field is changing a little bit. The ozone layer, as you know, has been thin, and of course they say that's aerosol cans and fluorocarbons and emissions of the cars or all that stuff. The atmosphere thins the ozone layer. But we, in any case, we have thinning of the ozone layer. We just get a complete hole in it, right, and burn the earth up. So we have the change in the Earth's core, the inside of the Earth, they say is slowing down. Of course, they say that all this stuff is happening, according to them. This Earth is still going to make it for billions of years. But the fact remains that if everything has been evolving into a more superior and something that adapts to its climate even better, then how do you explain the fact that everything has to do with the earth is actually, even admit that the sun's going to supernova and burn itself out, then how is it that everything else is evolving into a better life for it? Well, we just got a problem with everything they think. They also would have and various other dating that they use. Then you also have to admit that they're not infallible. You posed a question to somebody who's authority and asked them if the dating system that they use, can you ever find flaws with it? And they have to be honest and say, well, if it's infallible, if it does at times not be correct, how can you complete? Then there's the de-evolution of the human genomes. That studies have been done, numerous studies, in fact, thousands in North America alone, and that they came back with the proof that through the genes that there are some cells in it often that are corrupted cells. In other words, that's why particular people have particular issues sometimes. And if you don't, have you ever been told by your doctor that some of the condition that you have was genetic and inherited. It's a fact, folks. It is a fact. Corrupt cells in our genes and in our DNA that some folks have, and those corrupted cells lead us genetically to cancers and various other conditions. That is, so, yes, and sometimes some of the things, of course, that we do brings these things on. It's not genetic, but it, according to the doctors and science, have a lot of things because genetically we have inherited, and some of the DNA, they would say, has some issue in the DNA. If man has evolved into a better creature, and the world is getting better and better because we've evolved from this lower form into this thing that we are today, and the earth's getting better, then how is it that the things that are happening to the world and in fact a de-evolution, the fact of the matter is according to the studies, we are devolving better, and we are declining, and of course, according to them, I mean, it's the time for destruction of everything is way out in the future, but not. Research this, and many of them will tell you accordingly that the time's not going to be that far away, and many of them are recording now. Science. Many of them have declared them to be. You know, it just kind of comes really down to the matter, and you can research this tooth and nail. It just kind of comes down to is true. Because you can find many a thing that support, as well as you can find people who don't support what the Bible said. But I'm just here to tell you that evidences, if you'll look into them, are there, and they are undeniable. And that's why I'm here this morning, to encourage your support in God's Word, continue to encourage your support in God. If you don't believe the Genesis account, if you deny what it's teaching in there, and just go home and forget going to church, period. Because it ain't going to do no good to say you believe in God. God is wrong about one thing. He says if he's wrong about the fact that he created the world, then he could be wrong about something else, and he's not God at all. So what it comes down to is you just either believe what without understanding it all, or you disbelieve. It is to believe what the Bible says and to believe in God. And we're going to sing a song. And there's an altar here that's open. If you'd like to come pray, if you've never dedicated your heart to God, you're welcome to come. I'll help you with that. Be glad to. And make sure you've drifted from God, and this is a good time, good place to come to encourage that relationship. Your heart, your mind, and you just want to come pray, you get up, you come,